Okay, this is the hardy people who have stayed through the whole event and are here for the afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm your moderator today for this panel, which is proudly has Victor Calisi, who is Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. I am part of the committee that organizes this conference every year, and we've been just thrilled with the turnout and the participation, which has been great. Please put your cell phone on mute or vibrate, and if you are somebody that uses Twitter, it is hashtag CCVIP15. I am very proud today to introduce Victor Calisi. He, as Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, it is an office that is a liaison between the disability communities and city government. He has a role in procedures, in laws, regulations, and reaches out to many, many city agencies that impact on the lives of New Yorkers and also on the lives of people who visit New York. He's especially involved with regulations from the Department of Buildings, the Department of Transportation, which all of us know here because of the streets and sidewalks issues. And Victor has been, he's been a director of the Office of People with Disabilities for 4 years. Prior to that, he was working for the Parks Department to make sure that the city's recreation and relaxation places around the city were friendly to all residents. And he is the disability policy advisor to city agencies and the go-to man for city agencies who have particularly involved with issues that impact people with disabilities. And obviously we are talking about people with many, many different kinds of disabilities, and that is what Commissioner Calisi is going to talk to you about today. And after he finishes, we're going to have some time for questions from the audience. So if you have a question, just keep it in your mind for a bit, and you will have a chance to ask it. I introduce to you Commissioner Victor Calisi.
Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that. Nice welcome. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hello, sir.
Victor Andrews. You could always hear him. That's one thing. I just know the voice. How are you, Victor? So would everyone have a good conference so far? Good. I'm glad things like this are happening and continue to happen around the city. So, Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. I often go to sleep at night wondering what we do. And I have to, because prior to me coming to the office, I've constantly questioned what the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities does. And we have a pretty interesting role within the city, and not everybody doesn't get to see what we do on a daily basis. The way our office is set up, we're supposed to be a liaison between the mayor's office and the disabled community, and we are, and we're supposed to be more of a resource. So if someone comes to us, we're supposed to give them the resources to get to another city agency to be able to do what they need to do, if it's housing, if it's transportation, so on and so forth. Now, our role is a lot bigger than that. We work with just about every city agency that touches the city. So let's talk about one of the most important issues for people with visual disabilities, and that happens to be Department of Transportation. We understand the issues that are around there, and if we don't understand the issues, we reach out to organizations that do. We are working now and have been consistently working with PASS, for Pedestrians for Accessible Safe Streets. And one of their big concerns are having accessible pedestrian signals put out throughout the city. So we've worked with them and the City Council to increase the number of APSs that went from 25 now to 75. So the number has gone up. But we're also looking at different ways to make sure that these APSs get installed. So we're because we want to go, what we want to do is go over and beyond accessibility codes and standards. And that's not always easy because there's only a certain amount of dollars that are there. But there are different and creative ways that we can do that, looking at ways when we are in an area and we can install APS because the electric is there. We're looking at that. We're looking at different intersections to put them at. And we are looking to see if we can get different funding from different sources. So we continue to look at different ways that we can do that. Department of Transportation is also looking at doing some more wayfinding stuff around the city for people with visual disabilities. So, and looking at new Freedom Grant dollars to be able to do that. So there are interesting talks about that. And continue to happen. It's just about when funding can come in and what we can pilot, and if we do pilot something, how does that work, and who do we work with? And we know PASS is definitely one of the biggest, advocates out there working with the Department of Transportation. So we continue to do that. We look at accessible, affordable housing, and what does that actually mean for people with disabilities? Well, we know that when we're looking at housing, that if a person with a disability is looking for NYCHA housing and is very low income, they have, there are 7,000 accessible apartments in the NYCHA system, right, or 7,500, somewhere around there. And there are 30,000 people on the waiting list. It's extraordinary. On the waiting list, right? So how are we ever going to fill that need? Well, it's an issue. So we're looking at different ways to accomplish that. We're really working with HPD, and in the Mayor's Housing Plan, we also discussed this. We need to have a coordinator, a 504 ADA coordinator that's in HPD that can be able to address the issues of people with disabilities. We also need to ensure that developers, well, we know that we have people that are on low income, and then we have people, and then there's the income requirements for NYCHA. And in between that is a gap. And we need to fill that gap. And how do we fill that gap? We know that subsidies fill that gap. We have to identify what subsidies are valid. And then once we identify those subsidies, we need to make sure that developers know and do not turn down people just saying because they don't know or aren't sure if those subsidies are valid. So we're really looking at that in a way and working to get this coordinator within HPD Housing to really make this accessible for people with disabilities as a whole. Because right now, every housing complex has 7% for people with disabilities, preference for people with disabilities, and looking to get that changed to a set-aside, more or less. So instead of a preference means that if 7% doesn't get filled, anybody can get into that apartment. So we want to be able to set those aside, that they're only set aside for people with disabilities. So of the 7%, it's 5% for mobility and 2% for hearing and visual. So what tends to happen is, right now, if a person who has, let's say, a visual disability, because that's what we're focusing on here, is that people would hear, for the 2% that they have, they aren't getting rid of those apartments under HPD because people aren't applying for them because A, they may be too low income, and B, they don't know about subsidies. So it's important for people with disabilities to get on a system called Housing Connect. It's part of HPD. Sign up for Housing Connect. And the great thing about Housing Connect is, yes, it is, it does read, it picks up screen reader. So you can read it through screen reader because we made sure of that. And the thing is that signing up for Housing Connect, you sign up once, and your application is set in there, and every time you see an apartment that you're interested in, you just click on it, and it automatically does it. Whatever you do, when you do sign up for Housing Connect, don't do a double thing, like do it online and then send it in, because if you do that, you get disqualified. So just doing one click on Housing Connect will get you what you need to accessible, affordable housing. So those are just a couple of things that we do. We work with every city agency to ensure accessibility. It can be the Parks Department that Barbara mentioned that I worked for earlier. So those are just like some of the ways and some of the things that we do on a daily basis. I can go in, I could spend probably all day trying to tell you all the great things that we do, but I don't think we have enough time.
Start with some of the, you know, some of the issues that have been raised, particularly in this community, in the visually impaired community.
Well, housing is definitely one of them. APS is definitely another, and employment. Employment is a big issue for people with disabilities across the board. And I mean, out of the close to 4 million people that are employed, only 3.4% of those are people with disabilities. And I mean, if you look at the population of people with disabilities, we are about 800,000, a little over 800,000 people with disabilities in New York City, and that's 10% of the population. It's big. These numbers you can find on our website, nyc.gov/MOPD. We have statistics on that. Now, the ones that, the interesting thing is that people with disabilities for employment, it's mobility is the most employed, and then secondly, it's people with visual disabilities that are on there. Yes.
nyc.gov/.
MOPD.
Stands for Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, MOPD.
And those statistics are up there. We break those statistics out on employment, number of people with disabilities, number of people with disabilities by ethnicity, employment numbers.
Which is highest?
The highest is people with mobility disabilities, and then secondly, people with visual disabilities that are employed. We try to figure, our assumptions are that some of the reasons that is because mobility disability, in my eyes, is, people could deal with that a lot easier in the workplace, so there isn't that stigma around disability. And visual disabilities, comes about the same thing. People can deal with that a little bit more than other disabilities. That's an assumption. With some of the things, preferred sources really help out, with visual disabilities as well. So, for employment. So, the employment picture is what we're looking to try to change. And the mayor often says that he wants the city, the people that work for the city, to look like the city. So, there's been a lot of discussion around diversity inclusion in the workplace and city government. Just the other day, I was with NYU and Essentra. They hold a conference for city employees, and we were talking about diversity and inclusion and how important it is to be able to look at the talent pool of people that are out there, and how do we diversify, and we're looking at different ways to do that too. And we're working with CUNY, and CUNY has about 9,000 students with disabilities, and we believe they should be part of the workforce as well. We're trying to identify talent and get people with disabilities to apply for jobs across every agency and every bit from labor jobs to office jobs to high title jobs that are out there. So we're constantly thinking of how do we push the needle to make sure that people with disabilities are employed, because we know that once people with disabilities are employed, that it means a lot to the system. Your workers are going to get the most dedicated people that are out there. There's going to be the low retention. We don't want that turnover, and that doesn't tend to happen. People with disabilities, and what's great for people with disabilities is that stable job, and we know city government provides that stability and job and that insurance too. So we want people with disabilities to work. We want people to join the workforce, because people with disabilities want to be somebody's boss. They want to have a mortgage. They want to pay their bills. So we're looking in that as a whole, and looking at transportation issues is a lot what we've been doing. We've been a big part of that wheelchair accessible cabs. Advocates did a lot, and Mike, you did a lot to help push the accessibility in taxis, and that's important. 50% of the cabs will be accessible by 2020, and all of the cabs will also have loop systems for people. All the new taxis tomorrow will have loop systems for people with hearing disabilities. And all the screen readers will be put in for the taxis, so when you're going to pay for your taxi, it'll be, you have the voiceover in there as well. So there's been a lot that's been done on that, and our office has certainly been a big part of that.
One of the things that I thought of this winter with the particularly snowy, difficult winter that we had was, street potholes as you cross the street, where you just don't expect it, suddenly a big hole in a street crossing spot. The ice suddenly in unexpected places. It had to have been a big concern this year.
Yes, there is. It is, and it will continue to be as we try to get out of this snowstorm stuff we're still dealing with on the roads and stuff. I saw craters in the roadway this just coming here. So the Department of Transportation has a lot to do. And getting back to the Department of Transportation, we believe that city agencies should have somebody that's able to coordinate disability efforts throughout their agency. So, thank you. And this all started with the position that started at the Parks Department. So the Parks Department was audited by the state and said they were deficient in 7 areas of the Parks Department. And I was the first person to be in the Parks Department to come up as an ADA coordinator there. And I saw the value in having that ADA coordinator at the Parks Department, because we were able to I was able to do working with the Parks Department is really change the culture of the way that the Parks Department thinks about people with disabilities as a whole. Because having a person in the workforce builds acceptance and tolerance, number one, and it lets people understand that people with disabilities can work. So we were able to shape the way that they think about people with disabilities, and we were able to shape the way that they provide their programs and services. And we're also looking at ways to make sure that they design appropriately for people with disabilities, meaning that in their playgrounds there's playground equipment with high contrast. There is tactile, the equipment, play equipment that's out there. There's low, I think I said ground level play equipment, ramp systems that not only go up one area but also come down the other area, so a person could actually move through the space. And then thinking about building quiet places for kids with autism. So the Parks Department is really thinking about that and actually going over and beyond what accessibility codes and standards are. With that, we've been able to work, and then we have an ADA coordinator right now that's at the Department of Transportation. HRA just hired an ADA coordinator, and we're working with other city agencies to get ADA coordinators in each agency, because we feel that's important and really builds the acceptance and tolerance that we need, A, as a community, and B, as a city.
And one of the things that came to mind, that this year the mayor started the New York City ID card. And for people who don't have driver's licenses, which is the way most common use of ID card that people use, this has been tremendously warmly received in the city. And maybe
Yes.
give us a little information on how if people want, you
Sure.
can ID card that I believe you can use on a flight if you need
Yep.
for travel documents.
Yes, so IDNYC, it's a great program run by Immigrant Affairs. So basically, anyone that needs an ID card can get it. All you need is some documentation to say where you live. You can be your driver's license, or it can be a bill from of your residence, wherever you're from. Utility bill, yes. So we did a lot of work around that to make sure that there was large print and braille available. So if anyone goes into any of these centers, large print and braille is available. All they have to do is ask for it. We did a lot of training around how to work with people with disabilities in IDNYC. So we did a lot of training on that. So you should go in, and everybody should know exactly what to do if you ask for accommodation. We talked about providing interpreters, and for not only ASL but for other languages as well, so they're aware of all this and know where to get these interpreters. So if you go in, it's a free ID card, and it gives you access. If you need to get into any building, it provides. It's just like your driver's license. It's your city ID, and it also provides free. Membership, 1-year membership to facilities like the zoos, cultural institutions, and discounts. So sign up for it. You don't have, you can be anyone, I have my ID, if anyone wants to see it, I'll show you. But you can find it off our website, it's on the front page of our website, but it's IDNYC. So just Google that,
Google that,
you should be able to find it.
get the information and how to apply.
But it's certainly right on the front page of our website. Yes, Mike?
Will it work at the federal building as well?
It should work at the federal buildings as well.
I remember them saying it's not valid for travel.
I went and I tried using the travel when I recently was traveling, and they wouldn't accept it. I was just curious. They wouldn't accept it when you travel airline. Airline did not. But everywhere throughout New York City, I just flash it, and I've never had a problem. Right, you could use your state, you could use, yeah, you could use, yes, for flying, yes. So, where are we next?
So yes, do you have a question, Sarah, back there?
Yeah, earlier he was saying that for applicants who apply for central housing in New York, that there were suddenly available apartments. Do you think for out of the applicants who apply, that the city they'll build more housing for those who rent housing?
Well, the mayor is committed to, I believe it's 200,000 units of affordable housing.
But the population is more though.
Well, every affordable housing that's being built has 7% of the apartments on preference for people with disabilities, 5% for mobility, 2% for visual and hearing. Yeah.
Mrs. Don, I have a question regarding that. When I went to the HRA with one of my consumers, we asked them if they have them in the system as blind. And they said, no, it's a lottery system, so everybody gets, when you get called in.
Okay, let me explain that to you. So when you're filling out your Housing Connect application, there is they ask for a disability status, so make sure you put that. So basically what happens is in the past, what would happen is there would be like millions of applications, just say, and they would all be put in a pile. And if they happen to go through it and catch a person with a disability, they'd put those applications on the side. So what's happening with Housing Connect now is they have ability to separate those. So you go online, it says disability, so all the disability applications go in one pile, and the other one goes in another one. And there's a lottery system between those as well, but whatever. So all disabilities will be a lottery within that. Yes, Karen?
Two questions. Does that include people with emotional disability?
It-
People that are bipolar, depressed,
That, if they have a physical disability along with that, I would,
physical, okay.
yeah.
And the other question is, I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm in the affordable housing program, the 80/20. My building, though, I'm not sure if I'm wording this correctly. They're bond matured, whatever,
Mhm.
and they're going to start to bring the rents up to market rate. That's ludicrous. So what's going to happen to?
It's like when you have a mortgage, it's the loan, it has a certain number of years
So-
that it runs.
For
Right.
now, I'm protected because I'm in the DREAM program.
Right, I was going to say
But
that.
what if I'm not in the DREAM program? What about people that aren't in the DREAM program? This seems counterproductive.
Mm.
What are they gonna do?
If they aren't in the DREAM program, they're going to have to find a way to,
Could they go into another affordable housing?
if they could try, sure.
You could I think you can contact City's Office of Housing, HPD, City's Office of Housing Preservation and Development. Sometimes the city knows that a building is going to go age out of assisted financing, and they try to save that stock of houses, of affordable apartments. So you don't know, sometimes they're not successful, sometimes they do intervene.
My building's with the state, New York State.
Yeah,
Housing
okay.
Finance Agency.
Okay.
Will
Yeah.
they do that too?
So that's-
I'm not 100% sure, but what I can do, Karen, is I have your card, we can certainly follow back up with you.
That would be great.
I'm not that, I know a lot about housing, I don't claim to be the expert on it. That's why I have a team of people. Yes?
I have a question. It's the thing you read about this explosion happening in Manhattan.
Yes.
Firefighter
Yeah, there was just recently a big lawsuit in the city that is specifically for emergency management. During Sandy, we were thoroughly involved with people with disabilities and helping people get evacuated from buildings. We helped get people food. We helped people get transportation. Our office was really involved. After that, there was a lawsuit that claimed the city, although the city did provide a lot of different things, they needed to do a little bit more. So there's a lot going on right now with Office of Emergency Management, and more positions are coming forward to be able to address the needs of high-rise evacuation, sheltering, transportation, and all of that. So. As a matter of fact, even with the explosion, I was working with emergency management yesterday to make sure that the centers that they put up are accessible and have access. So there's a team of people that are working on those issues. We have a question in the back.
Yeah, hi, Commissioner.
How you doing?
I wanted to ask you a little more about what they're doing to make shelters more accessible.
Yes, there's lots of different things to do. There's, surveying shelters to see what's accessible and what's not. Looking at the Department of Justice's checklist to see using that checklist to make sure accessibilities meet that code. But then that DOJ checklist is old. It's not the 2010 standard, so we have to kind of look at that. So there's a shelter assessment that they're working through right now. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So we talked a little bit about the accessible wheelchair accessible cabs, and the fact that folks can call in and ask for a cab.
Mhm.
That's a brilliant system. What I would like to see, you must know how much difficulty, if you have a seeing eye dog, how much difficulty you have hailing a cab. They won't even stop.
Well, let's, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, I mean, if we could look at trying to extend that, being able to call in and get a cab that knows they're gonna show up at a person's door that has a seeing eye dog, that would be really.
Well, I don't know if everybody realizes, but there's a couple of ways to get a wheelchair accessible cab. Specifically, let's just talk yellow for now. So the yellow cabs, anybody with a disability, if they don't have to be a wheelchair, anybody can call 311, use text, right? Use the website or use the Wheels on Wheels app on your phone. And regardless of your disability, they will pick you up. So you have the same ability as a wheelchair user to be able to use that system.
I did that, and then somebody called me out on Facebook, somebody who was involved in the whole campaign, saying those cabs are only for
No,
persons.
they are not.
Okay, good.
They are for people with disabilities, period.
So what do? You can call 311?
You call 311, use the Wheels on Wheels app, text,
Text too.
you can text, it's the dispatch system. Or, let's see, there's website, there's 311, there's a direct line, there's text, and there is an app. So, so if you have a service animal, call. And for some reason, if anyone discriminates you make sure we know. See, that's the thing, too. People say, "Oh, I couldn't get a cab. They wouldn't stop." And I've had people that wouldn't stop for me, and I've done some interesting things to get it. And I was if you can and you have the cab's number, the way that they treat you in any way, shape, or form, you have to let us know, because if we don't know, and if you don't complain, we cannot fix the problem.
Well, in my case, the driver was wonderful. It was, as I said, this other person who had apparently worked on the campaign who erroneously said, no, those cabs are only for.
That is not true. And you can get, the whole idea is to work on a citywide dispatch, so if anyone in the outer boroughs can get it too. So if anybody's in the outer boroughs and you're looking to get a cab, use the Uber app. And the Uber app has a little section on it called WAV, which is Wheelchair Accessible Vehicle. It's called Wave. And the cool thing about it is, at this point, Uber is not charging any upcharges for the wheelchair accessible vehicles. So you should be able to get one in the outer borough, and pay metered rate. So I would certainly use that in the outer boroughs. I've used it, I've been in the outer boroughs, and I've used it in Bayside, Queens, Bushwick, Brooklyn, and Northern Boulevard near Accessoride, and it's come anywhere from 4 to 10 minutes. So, and that's using the Uber app, and the Yellow app I've used, and I do that when I'm in the outer boroughs just to test it, to see what it's like, and see if it actually works. And it has been. And then if you think of Bayside, Queens, it's pretty far, and it actually worked. Sir, in front, you had a question?
Yes, actually, I have two. One relates to transportation.
Sure.
And the other is another matter you haven't come to yet. Transportation. I live in eastern Queens on the Queens-Nassau border.
Okay.
Okay, I rely heavily on mass transit.
Okay.
particularly buses.
Yeah, I was going to say, there isn't too much public transportation besides that.
Well, that's fine, except I'm running into a very unique situation there, and it seems to be such a simple solution which I can't get across. When I board a bus and ask the driver to hop, it is A, in their job description, and B, part of ADA reasonable accommodation. When a person with a disability, I board the bus with a disability.
Mhm. Mm-hmm.
When a person with a disability requests that it's made to stay on the post of the line. Now, how do I get that?
Some drivers call out to stop at every stop.
And I believe,
There they don't.
and I believe,
That'll never happen.
so,
That'll never happen.
so I believe that they should be accommodating you in every way, and I believe like you said, it's in their job description. Would it be best for us to know, when I leave, I'll give you my card, it'll be best for you, let's talk offline and figure out what we could do.
Yeah.
It is the driver's responsibility. So well, there's one thing. If we don't know the problem, we can't fix it. So making complaints through the MTA complaint service is certainly one way to do it. Another way to do it is to reach out to our office, and then we could see what we can do to help change it.
Can I pose another problem, unrelated subject, or shall I wait?
Yeah, why don't we wait and talk about all of this?
I have another unrelated to that, something related to
Ye-
cyber.
Sure, let's talk about that in a second. I just want to go into some of the things that Barbara and I were talking about as well, about advocacy. So if we think about it, mostly people, we're 800,000 people with disabilities, and generally everybody considers us as one group. And in many people's eyes that we are, right? In my eyes and minds, that's what people consider us. So that's close to 1 million people, one big voice. What happens within our community as a whole, from my perspective and what I've been dealing with, everybody just works on their own issues. So blind advocate for blind, deaf advocate for deaf, hard of hearing advocate for hard of hearing, and wheelchair advocate for wheelchair. Besides I saw Mike working at BCID at the time, and he was advocating for wheelchair accessible cabs, and it was part of his job, but nonetheless he was there. But we need our community to really think differently about how we advocate for each other. I'm a person who's in a wheelchair. And I am responsible for, the 800,000 people with disabilities in New York City, or to advocate for those 800,000 people with disabilities. And I need to know what the issues are for everyone. I need to know what the issues are for people who are blind. I need to know who's deaf and hard of hearing, and so on and so forth. Not just wheelchair, because if I do that, I'm not doing my job. But I'm in a unique position, right? And I have to know that. But there's a point where we need deaf to advocate for blind. We need hard of hearing to advocate for blind. We need blind to advocate for wheelchair, and so on and so forth. Because then we're really one voice of close to 1 million people. How do we do that together to be advocates?
Power, that's how you gain power.
That's it. That's exactly how we gain power, as we, as that one group that people view us as, gain power. Not easy. You know, I'm trying to figure out how do we pull people together in different ways, and I think I have an idea of how to do that. We are going to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's 25 years of fighting for what we have today. And some may say it's not enough, and some may say it is a lot. But, you know, we have a perfect opportunity to A, celebrate the ADA, and B, show what our pride is. And the mayor's office with people with disabilities has been thinking about the 25th anniversary since October, and what we've been doing and planning around the 25th anniversary of the ADA is something pretty big. Now, cities around the country, we meet with other MOPD cities every month to talk about disability-related issues, what's happening, and best practices, and so on and so forth. So everyone's doing like a day or a week, but we are planning here in New York City a month-long celebration. And what that month-long celebration will look like is 4 signature events. They will start off with the history of disability in New York City, and we're going to curate that hopefully at a museum or at the United Nations. It's really going to talk about what people in New York City have done to fight for the ADA. Transportation was fought in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and there was just a lot going on about boarding the bus, getting those transportation. And what happened in New York City, we were the first to, the MTA was sued and was the first bus system to be accessible, which later became 100% accessible, which also helped set the standards across the country. So, that's monumental. And there are other things that has been fought for across the country, that has been fought for here in New York City that is, will be replicated around the country. And if you look at cabs, there's certainly everything that advocates have fought for will set the standard, 50% accessible cabs by 2020. No other city in this country is doing that. No one. Right? But it's happening here. So New York has really set the stage for a lot of what's happening. So we want to be able to celebrate that and pay respect to the advocates that have made my life easy, right? I got hurt 20 years ago. We're celebrating the 25th anniversary of the ADA. Prior to me being hurt, I used to put in wheelchair-accessible bathrooms because I was a plumber, but I didn't think anything of it. It was just something I did. It was the codes and standards that I had to go by. But they were there, and I remember doing it. So we want to pay respect to that. We want to celebrate who we are as a community, and July 12th, we will have our first Disability Pride Parade that will march from Madison Square Park to Union Square Park. So get with an organization, get together, march under a banner, sign up for it. We will, hopefully in a week or two, we'll have, hopefully next week, we'll have stuff up on our website about it. Disability Pride NYC is running the parade. It's a group of people with disabilities. So the parade is for disabilities by people with disabilities, and we're definitely lending a hand to help with that support. So July 12th, put it on your calendar. It's going to be a big day. Pray for no rain. Yes, no, 2015. 2015, the whole month of July. So our second. Yes, all right. Disability Pride NYC, 108 days away, right? Don't even tell me, Mike. Mike, you got to tell me that. So, it's a Sunday. Yes, it is a Sunday. It's Sunday, and it's going to be great because being able to march down Broadway and get into Union Square, the market won't be there, so there won't be any big mess there, no conflicts. And then we're building stuff around, we're discussing disability, and we're going to discuss it at CUNY campuses around the city, and we're going to talk about disability employment, disability and civic engagement. How do we get people with disabilities involved, right? And some of the questions that I posed here today, how do we get everyone to advocate for each other? Disability in technology, disability in women's health, disability in film. So we're going to be doing a lot of discussions at CUNY. And then our last event is our annual ADA Awards, with, some have been there, which we do every year with the mayor. Those are our 4 signature events. But in conjunction to that, we are doing adaptive sports and recreation clinics with the Department of Parks and Recreation. We're working with cultural institutions to do a lot around disability in fine arts, disability in theater, disability in dance, disability in film. The Parks Department has agreed to show 4 disability films. So you will see night films, so be aware of that. They'll be up there. We're working with Real Abilities to find out what that's going to be, and other organizations. Through the regular film festivals throughout the city that the Parks is hosting, we're making sure that there's short films in between those, so short disability-specific films, so everyone will get a taste of this. Brooklyn Bridge Park has also agreed to do a film night. I believe it's July 19th, but don't quote me on that, but just be aware. And we want to be able to build a legacy of what we're doing. We just don't want this to be, the 1 month and then we're done. So what we've done is we've built a website which will have a calendar on there. Now, probably everyone in this room gets an email from Luda that tells you about what's happening, right? And that's probably, and you have to go here and check a website there and another website over here. We're hoping that everybody posts everything related to disability for the month of July and beyond on our calendar, so it's a one-stop shop for people with disabilities. People will submit it, we'll take it, we will vet it, and we will post it. So that's what we're doing for the 25th anniversary of the ADA, and this is one of the ways that we're hoping that we can get the community together as one group. So those are some of the things that we're doing. We will continue to push the conversation on making sure that everyone is advocating for the rights of everyone, because we feel that big one voice will be helpful.